Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Does Jason's trip to Croatia end in a romantic reunion in Britt's bed? According to General Hospital teasers, Jason Morgan's trip to Croatia might end in Britt Westbourne's bed. When Jason's search is successful, will there be a passionate reunion? Jason is currently unable to shake the sighting of the Britt airport. Jason isn't entirely convinced that Britt is dead, despite Carly Spencer's insistence on that point. Before he had a clear view of Britt, Jason could feel her presence. Jason felt as though a magnetic pull was telling him to look up and see his ex. Jason is now thinking that since Britt's flight went to Dubrovnik, she might still be alive and there. Since Britt allegedly died in Liesl Albrecht's arms, Jason has made the decision to speak with her, but she might not have the answers he needs. She might not be of much assistance, regardless of whether Albrecht is concealing Britt's survival or was tricked like everyone else. However, because of that travel to Dubrovnik, Jason already has some information he can use. Jason might be able to pinpoint Britt's exact hiding place with the help of Damian Spinelli, who always has a few tricks up his sleeve. In any case, GH spoilers indicate that after all this time apart, Britt and Jason will eventually cross paths. Jason might travel to Croatia and then confront Britt, who will have to give an explanation. There might be sparks between Britt and Jason from the beginning, regardless of the story she gives. It's important to remember that when Britt died, Jason was still thought to be dead, so she should also be surprised to see him. It might not take long for desire to flare between Jason and Britt after fate pulls them back together. To start their next romantic chapter, it would be fantastic if temptation could entice Britt and Jason into bed right away. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason will stop at nothing to uncover the whole Britt truth, so keep checking back for any exciting developments. Joe's plan, Liesl quizzed, Willow's wedding bomb. Spoilers for the week of July 28th on General Hospital hint at some surprises. Willow Tate will undoubtedly walk down the aisle, but she will have a plan. Liesl Albrecht is informed about Britt Westbourne by Jason Morgan. In addition, Emma Scorpio Drake and Gio Palmieri devise a scheme. Willow Tate's wedding surprise. Let's begin with Willow, who is preparing to wed Drew Kane. Curtis Ashford, however, informed the bride about the affair between Drew and Nina Reeves. Willow demanded the truth when Nina entered the room. Nina took it to mean that her daughter would not be married. Fans are aware, though, from a sneak peek, that Willow does start down the aisle. Even though the unstable bride is still stunning, she is staring at the shady congressman with a steely stare in her eyes. Elizabeth Baldwin's house guest Elizabeth Liz Baldwin is hosting an unexpected guest. Do you think this is Willow? The bride expressed her gratitude to Liz for her assistance. Willow will need a somewhere to stay after the nurse lashes out at her fiancé at the ceremony. Perhaps Willow is Rick Lansing's new client, given that she is blaming everyone but herself for losing custody? Eventually, Michael Corinthos will have to make a significant choice. This might have to do with Willow. Will Michael let Willow visit the children now that Drew isn't involved? Most likely not, given that Willow has not been abstaining from Wiley Corinthos as directed by the court. The fact that Willow signed the legal papers granting Drew custody of the children in the event of her death is another problem. He pushed for that for a purpose, and it will most likely be revealed soon. Fans will witness Jason pursuing Liesl as well. Naturally, Jason will have inquiries concerning Britt. Liesl will be intrigued by that, but could they work together to discover the truth? Jason later shares his suspicions with Anna Devane. Nina is comforted by Portia Robinson. Interesting information is given to Martin Gray. Alexis Davis is demanding clarification. Lucas Jones receives advice from Felicia Scorpio. Danny Morgan is questioned by Dante Falconeri. In addition, Emma and Gio devise a scheme. GH spoilers, Curtis lives to regret revealing the truth about Drew and Nina. According to General Hospital teasers, Curtis Ashford has come clean to Willow Tate about Drew Kane and Nina Reeves' affair. Drew is still unaware that Curtis told Willow the truth, and Willow confronted Nina. But Curtis might not know what hit him when he learns this truth. Drew Kane finds out that Curtis Ashford told Willow Tate the truth. Drew would be furious to find out that Curtis was the one who let Willow know about his affair with Nina. Drew would laugh at this even though he would know that Curtis was trying to stop his wife, Dr. Portia Robinson, from being blackmailed. If he believes that revealing Willow the truth about his affair with Nina will make him resign from his wife, EW would go to Curtis, confront him, and tell him that he is a fool. Curtis would be surprised that his strategy didn't work out and acknowledge that he should have anticipated Drew's refusal to compromise. Drew Kane grows more vengeful in his blackmail of Portia Robinson. Drew would visit Portia and make even more demands, and he would make sure that Curtis continues to suffer by pursuing his wife more vigorously. In retaliation for taking Aurora from him, he has also intended to seize Michael's ELQ shares, so he would force Portia to destroy him. Drew would inform Curtis that he intends to reclaim Aurora as well, so he had best be prepared for conflict. Curtis would be shocked to learn that Drew has become much worse than he was before his attempts to save his wife have failed. The marriage of Portia Robinson and Curtis Ashford is at a crossroads now that Drew is pursuing them more aggressively than before. Portia would accuse Curtis and claim that she knew she should have come clean and ignored him. Curtis intends to do just that, and he would apologize to her while claiming to be acting in her best interests. Portia goes to the board to submit her resignation and come clean about manipulating Heather Weber's test results because she will not allow the blackmail to carry on. Drew's retaliation against Curtis is only getting started, even though he no longer has any influence over Portia. Aurora loses Curtis Ashford. Drew now has the ammunition he needs to kill Curtis. To make it appear as though he recruited Jacinda and paid her to drug him, he has manipulated the evidence. He shares what he has with Curtis and offers to give him the proof against him in return for Aurora. Drew informs Curtis that he must act quickly to determine how to make Drew the principal shareholder and obtain Michael's signature on his shares so that Curtis may transfer them to Drew. Curtis will have no choice but to comply with Drew's wishes as he is now running the possibility of going to jail. Since Curtis has been putting in a lot of effort and Michael has retreated, he would somehow persuade Michael to grant him further Aurora shares. Michael may consent and transfer the shares to Curtis, who will then sign them to Drew. Drew has taken revenge, and Curtis will be sorry he ever told Willow the truth. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? When Drew finds out that Curtis told Willow the truth, do you think his situation will worsen even more? Will Drew keep pursuing Curtis and Portia? Will Curtis regret ever disclosing Drew and Nina's affair to Willow? The game was something Cody Bell had always mastered. He knew how to disarm, divert attention, and skirt suspicion with a smile here and a look there. Christina had initially recruited him for that reason. She needed someone who could approach Ava Jerome without setting off alarms, someone cunning enough to learn her secrets without drawing attention to themselves. Initially, it had been a favor, one that offered leverage. Christina sought evidence that Alexis was being blackmailed by Ava. Cody acted as the go-between. Win over the serpent, keep the secrets, and leave with a pat on the back and a fresh start. However, things didn't work out that way. Because Ava became the blaze rather than just the target. Their initial encounter was short. In a quick introduction to the museum, Ava's witty remarks contrast with Cody's easygoing confidence. Too casual, too curious, too interested without cause, she clocked him in seconds. But she held him near instead of pushing him away. She had no faith in him. She liked him, though. Sarcasm began to permeate their exchanges. Side comments and sarcastic remarks. But slowly, something changed. There was flirtation in the teasing. Longer than necessary glances were exchanged. Cody would step forward a bit. Ava's smile would last a little too long. They were no longer merely sparring. They were going around one another. Cody had anticipated playing a part, acting as the charmer who caused Ava to let her defenses down. However, the more time he spent with her, the more difficult it was to tell the difference between the truth and the act. Ava had a magnetic quality with all of her layers and shadows. She not only demanded attention, but also absorbed it. And Cody, who had been vacillating between responsibilities and emotional evasions for a large portion of his life, was pulled in. Not for intelligence. Not for Christina. For her. The plan did not include that. And it was risky because of it. For her part, Ava saw the shift before he did. Mind games and ulterior motivations were nothing new to her. She had lived through false marriages and boyfriends who hid daggers in their love. Cody, however, was unique. He lacked precision and polish. He was untidy. Actual. She could see hesitation, guilt, longing, and more as she gazed into his eyes. That was a look she knew, since she had already worn it once. Before it grew, she ought to have chopped it off. Instead, though, she drew him in. In addition to hurting Ava's pride, Rick's involvement in Elizabeth had revived old wounds that she believed had healed. She had let her guard down and given Rick the benefit of the doubt, only to see him start to show interest in another lady. She felt as though she had to relive every instance of betrayal she had ever experienced. However, Cody didn't give her that look. He didn't think he could outmaneuver or control her. He regarded her as though she were the sky and the storm. It was also novel. There was no denying their chemistry. Port Charles was constantly observing and muttering. According to some of the villagers, their relationship was the most electrifying thing the show had seen in a long time. Others wrote it off as a clumsy turn of events, another fling bound to fall apart under a web of falsehoods. However, the reality was more nuanced. Since Cody wasn't merely infatuated with Ava. He was involved with Molly, too. And everything else got increasingly unstable as his bond with Ava deepened. Molly was not yet aware of the specifics. She was unaware that Christina had been receiving information from Cody. She was unaware that Cody had been used by her own family to try to trap Ava. But she had a feeling something wasn't right. The separation. The changes in tone. The disappearances in the dead of night. She had already witnessed the expression in a man's eyes that conveyed his thoughts were elsewhere. With another person. Cody made an effort to control his guilt. He assured himself that he had not actually gone too far. He hadn't given Ava a kiss. Had not shared a bed with her. However, his conscience told him otherwise. Because hearts are more likely to betray than hands. He already had a wandering heart. Ava started putting the puzzle pieces together in the meanwhile. An accidental chat with Christina. A lapse in Cody's schedule. An incomplete statement regarding leverage and Alexis. She wasn't a moron. They'd dispatched Cody to play her. And he had for some time. Now, however, the situation was reversed. Late one night at the gallery, as the street outside grew quiet and the lights were going down, she confronted him. She remarked, "You came here to lie to me." "Why do I now believe you, then?" Cody took a while to respond. He gave her his full attention. At last, he added, because it ceased being a lie. And for once, Ava wasn't sure if she should kiss him or slap him. It was inevitable what would happen next. The distinctions become hazy. They became more flirtatious. Secrets turned into wounds. And between them, trust, weak, imperfect trust, started to grow. However, the world continued to move at a steady pace. Drew, already tense due to his own baggage and Ava's past, paid attention. His arguments with Ava became more acerbic. He had never trusted Cody. And Drew was prepared to battle this new pairing if it threatened to pull Ava into yet another maelstrom. Meanwhile, Cody struggled with Christina's consequences. In addition to Cody's departure from the mission, she felt deceived by the implications for her relationships with Molly and Alexis. Christina gritted her teeth and whispered, "You were supposed to help. Don't lose yourself in her." "I didn't mean to," Cody answered. "The tension grew like a storm cloud, but you did." There was a lot of conjecture at Port Charles. Was this the breakdown of a cunning plan gone too far, or the emergence of an unexpected couple? Can Ava and Cody make their way through the minefield of their pasts and the individuals who continue to hold them captive? There were no simple solutions. Simply untidy realities. And unsaid aspirations. One evening, Ava sat by herself and gazed at an unfinished painting. There was nobody in the gallery. The lights go off. But her thoughts were racing. She had previously trusted others. Her heart was shattered into bits after she had opened it. It felt different, though, with Cody. Not any safer. Not any simpler. Just the truth. Cody was torn between telling Molly the truth and keeping quiet as he paced the docks across town with his phone in hand. Every second that went by felt like another betrayal, even though he didn't want to upset her. He didn't feel proud of his actions. He wasn't embarrassed by his feelings, though. He simply was unable to articulate the distinction. The truth was eventually revealed. It unraveled slowly rather than with a boom. Molly found out that Cody was involved. Christina acknowledged her scheme. Ava, enraged yet torn, demanded room. Drew tried to protect Ava by inserting himself, but he was pushed away. But something was left among the ruins. A spark. Flickering and faint. But still living. Cody and Ava weren't a good fit. They were unpredictable. Perhaps, though, that was the purpose. Perhaps symmetry wasn't important in love. Perhaps it has to do with chaos seeing its reflection. There was no doubt that Ava and Cody had turned the game upside down when the dust fell over Port Charles. And they had already altered the rules, regardless of whether their relationship was the start of something daring or the precursor to yet another heartache. And nobody could pretend differently, not even they. Lucas confronts Sunny and Carly, and Curtis tells Willow about Nina and Drew on her wedding day. Carly and Sunny first met at the Metro Court pool. She wondered if taking Marco and escalating the situation with Sidwell was the wisest course of action. Carly should have spoken to Lucas, who turned him into the police, Sunny said, defending his choice. Michael and Wiley showed there for Wiley's swim lesson before Carly could reply. Michael talked to Wiley for a little while before taking him to practice. Sunny informed Carly about Marco's appearance to fabricate a story for the ADA after Carly expressed shock that Lucas had gone to the police. Sunny claimed to have reached a consensus with Sidwell. Michael walked back up and said he would also like to know if it meant her family was safe when Carly questioned. Sunny gave Sidwell a quick explanation of his agreement. The topic of discussion shifted to Drew, who Sunny said exploited Michael's injury and shattered any possibility of a compromise between him and Willow. Michael claimed that he made an effort to avoid thinking about what might have happened with Willow. Although he acknowledged that it was difficult to imagine her marrying Drew, he was more worried about the children. He claimed he will continue to abide by the court ruling even though they missed Willow. Marco and Lucas, meantime, were waking up in their hotel room at the Metro Court. As they hugged, they discussed their growing bond and Marco's kidnapping. Marco said that nothing could separate them and that they would end up somewhere amazing. They opted to spend some time in bed because neither of them had to be at work. Their happiness was interrupted when Lucas saw Sunny sitting with Carly and Michael by the pool later. Marco urged Lucas to keep quiet and wanted to go, but Lucas was unable to stop himself. Sunny noticed Lucas approaching them and rose from the table. Lucas asked Sunny if he felt that sending him the key to locate Marco was a favor. "You should be counting your blessings," Sunny advised him. They both thought Marco was fortunate, but Lucas continued, "You don't know who the players are or what's at stake." Sunny told Lucas that Marco was fortunate and advised him to do them all a favor by not calling the police the next time he was concerned about Marco. As Wiley's lesson came to an end, Michael said him farewell and started preparing himself in his mind to find a way to inform Wiley of Willow's marriage. Lucas approached Carly after he had left to see if she had noticed Marco's wounds and bruises. He revealed that Sunny told him he didn't have the right to be angry because he didn't know what was happening when she expressed her happiness that he was with Lucas. "You don't, as much as I hate to admit that. And by calling the police, you demonstrated that," she said. Lucas said that he had never accepted their pact of silence, asked why she had kept Sunny's secrets, and explained his behavior by pointing out that they were no longer together. He even went so far as to confront her with Morgan's passing. Carly stated that she had no choice but to live with the repercussions and that she was not going to relive her son's death with him. She asked him to stare at himself for a moment, then turned it back on him. He had nearly reconciled with Brad since coming back to Port Charles, and he was already deeply involved with Marco. Carly pointed out that Lucas was defending a man he hardly knew and overreacting to everything, but Lucas didn't understand her point. She informed him that while he was unable to perceive the issue clearly, he was making a lot of charges against Sunny. Since Marco was the first man he had fallen for since Brad, she believed he was too naive to see that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Michael informed Wiley about Willow and Drew's marriage from the opposite side of the pool. Wiley stated that he preferred his mother to remain married to Michael and did not want her to wed Uncle Drew. Michael acknowledged that it was difficult, but he told Wiley that he and his mother would always love him. Sonny visited Marco in his hotel room after speaking with Lucas. "Your father got you into the situation," Sonny stated in response to Marco's statement that he was assuming he wasn't present to apologize. "I'm the reason you're not still in it." Sonny stated that he simply wanted Marco to keep out of his way and didn't anticipate a thank you. At the Bad Gen Cafe, Kai discovered Trina. He said that his love for Trina had not altered, even though he was aware that she felt deceived, and he wished for them to return to their previous relationship. "Why was he wearing a suit?" Trina asked. "And that's why there's no going back for us," she replied in response to his announcement that he was attending Drew and Willow's wedding, and she departed. Scout, thrilled to be a flower girl at the wedding, was picked up by Alexis when she got to Drew and Willow's house. While talking about Scout, Drew revealed his intention to relocate them to Washington, D.C. after Willow was given back custody. He assured Alexis that he would never stand in the way of her and Scout's relationship. She asked him to hold off on talking about D.C. since she was worried about uprooting Scout's entire life. To Scout until he was positive he wanted to move. "Just like I know you want her to be happy," Alexis said bluntly to Drew. Scout, who loved him and wanted him to be happy. "And that you will always prioritize her pleasure over your own." Drew paused to express his pride in Scout before Alexis and Scout departed. Scout said she was thrilled that everyone would be able to visit them at the house all the time and that her dad would be content. Kai later showed up with Drew's passport. He intends to take Willow on their honeymoon to the south of France. While discussing Willow, Drew recalled their earlier exchange, in which he started to suspect that she was the one pursuing Daisy. He was informed by Kai that he and Trina were no longer together. "You don't stay silent when you know someone is being framed for something they didn't do," Kai stated, in response to Drew's admission that he was the reason they broke up. Before departing for the chapel, Kai wished Drew luck with Willow and said, "Not when you know the truth." When Curtis arrived, Portia was sitting in her hospital office, reading her letter of resignation. He inquired as to whether she had lingered at the hospital once again due to work obligations or a refusal to return home. She claimed that since it was her last night at General Hospital and most likely her last night as a doctor, she stayed the night. She told him about her talk with Willow since she believed they had pretty much reached that stage, even though Curtis had assumed she would wait until they had tried everything else. Before he resigned, he pleaded her to give him another day. Curtis made a list of what-if scenarios and concluded that Willow might decide not to attend the wedding. He claimed he would do all in his power to keep her safe, even if it meant betraying a friend, but Portia had no idea what he was thinking. Curtis hoped that Drew would decide to move to D.C., forget about them, and stop using Portia if he could convince Willow to leave him. Portia was telling Curtis she didn't want him to compromise himself when Trina arrived. Instead of saying anything to Trina just yet, they asked her how she was feeling. She expressed her disappointment and hurt at the breakup with Kai to them. Trina felt they weren't telling her anything after Curtis left, but Portia steered the conversation in a different direction. Portia stated that humans were weak, flawed, and fell short of their own aspirations in life, but she did not advise Trina to take Kai back. She had no right to judge others because she had acknowledged her own fault. Elizabeth had already arrived at the chapel and was going over Maxie's final wedding plans. When Liesel came, she immediately reminded Elizabeth of her assistance to Nicholas, which hindered a police investigation into the serial killer who killed Britt. Liesel stated she would accept it and be kind as a wedding present because Elizabeth was assisting with the wedding. In the meantime, Nina gave Willow a bracelet in the bride's suite at the church. She said the flowers were beautiful, but what a pity they have been sacrificed for a marriage doomed to fail. Willow was thrilled to tie the knot and informed Nina that she was the reason it was all possible. Later, Willow and Nina were joined in the bride's room by Elizabeth and Liesel. Nina became more anxious and certain that Willow was the one pursuing Daisy. After Alexis and Scout showed up, Nina went to take a breather. Willow was given a photo of the two of them by Scout. Willow said that Scout may call her whatever she wanted when she asked if she wanted to refer to her as Mom. She continued by telling Scout that she would never replace her mother, who cherished her. Willow urged Scout to see her as someone who would always be there for her, and loved her father. Liesel, Alexis, and Scout went off to let Elizabeth assist Willow get dressed after she said she was sorry for Sam's passing and that they were members of a terrible club. Ava entered the chapel area in the meantime and saw Nina crying. When Ava attempted to reassure her, Nina informed her that the situation was far worse than she had anticipated. Nina told her about all the weird things that happened with Daisy and Sasha's departure. Nina eventually blurted out that she believed it might have been Willow, but Ava, like everyone else, thought it was one of Sunny's adversaries. Ava tried her best to explain why it wasn't Willow, but Nina provided all the proof. Nina claimed that Drew was the one who had done this to her, and as her mother, she could not stand by and watch it continue even though she acknowledged Willow was in charge of her own decisions. "I'm finished," she said. "I'm finally done," and turned to leave. Curtis rushed into the bride's room before Nina did, telling Willow right away that she needed to know something about Drew. Willow was surprised to learn that Drew had been having an affair with Nina the previous summer before she could stop him. Nina is devastated, and Jason wants answers. There will be drama at Port Charles. It appears that Jason is getting ready for a big week. There is only one person who can provide him with some answers now that he has seen a woman who looks like Britt and questions whether she could still be alive. He will track down Liesel and demand explanations regarding Britt on Monday. He will share his thoughts with his trusty friend Anna at the end of the week, but she will already be busy dealing with a worried Dante. In the meantime, things could not go as planned during Drew and Willow's wedding, which will start the week. It appears Willow may permanently distance herself from her mother after Curtis apologized to Nina, who is looking to Portia for solace. What will happen with her cunning fiancé, though? It appears that Christina will tell Michael about her plan now that she is aware of Cody and Molly's attraction, while Molly begins a quarrel with someone. Alexis will ask for answers later this week, but from whom? Odds and ends Martin will receive some interesting information in the middle of the week. Will this have anything to do with the enigmatic letter to Monica he discovered at Drew's house? After Emma discloses her genuine intentions about Dalton, she and Gio will come up with a strategy by the end of the week. Finding common ground between Sonny Corinthos and Nina Reeves seemed as possible as peace in Port Charles for a long time. Their past was tainted by treachery, unsaid emotions, and a marriage that hardly made it through its own hardships. However, something surprising started to happen in early July when a fortuitous meeting evolved into a dialogue that altered their relationship. In energy as well as words. The walls remained intact. However, they broke. And that was sufficient to dramatically change the story for two individuals who were characterized by their pride. Sonny didn't intend to approach her. Yes, he had questions, but he also questioned whether it was worth it. The damage had already been done by Nina. She had given the media information on him, which started a series of events that put his family under scrutiny once more. It was personal, it was more than simply treachery. Very much so. He still wanted to know why, though. Not for fairness. To be clear. She was by herself at the Metro Court rooftop bar when he spotted her, holding a glass of white wine and her shoulders erect as though she had been bracing herself for an impending conflict. Then all of a sudden he was there. Neither of them anticipated the course of the subsequent talk. Sonny arrived with stern gaze but without anger. He asked precisely what he needed to ask. Nina didn't dodge the situation or provide a flimsy apology. Rather, she was honest with him. Tracy was the one who pushed her hand. It was strategic pressure intended to achieve Tracy's goals covertly, not even subtle blackmail. Tracy possessed knowledge about Willow that could have exploded more lives than Sonny's, thus Nina's information to the media was a trade made under pressure. Nina did not defend it. She gave an explanation. Sonny listened, too. He didn't speak louder. Didn't leave. Didn't use insults. This one remark changed everything. Instead, he said something neither of them was prepared for: sometimes, the story doesn't end the way you think. Really, it wasn't forgiveness. However, it was comprehension. And that meant something to a man who had every reason to despise her. Nina compared it to exhaling after holding her breath for months. she turned to face Sunny and informed him honestly that she had valued their time together, no matter how it ended. That it did. That despite all of their errors, suffering, and secrets, their marriage remained one of the most memorable periods of her life. He didn't dispute it. He didn't make fun of it. He allowed it to be thus. Even though it was silent, that moment reverberated louder than the majority of Port Charles conflicts. It wasn't a reconciliation. However, it was a reunion. In the days that followed, rumors spread. Perhaps not outright rumors, but rumors. The sort of conjecture that was common in a place where nothing was kept secret for very long. Did Sunny and Nina manage to make it back? The wedding shocker of Willow and Drew, a happily never after. When we last saw Willow, she was falling for Drew last summer and Curtis was telling her that her mother was having an affair with him. She was shocked by the news, and chaos ensued when Nina showed up to assist her daughter in getting ready for the wedding. Willow insisted on knowing if her mother had slept with Drew. Willow blasted her mother for her deceit as soon as Nina finally revealed what she had been keeping from her for months. Surprisingly, though, Willow wasn't just upset at Nina. Knowing that Drew had cheated on her just as much as her mother had, Willow finally placed some of the blame on him for the first time since they started dating. Nina entered the church to inform Ava that there would not be a wedding after confessing that she wishes she had never discovered Nina was her mother. However, it was too late. Scout came down the aisle, the music started, and Willow emerged, gazing at a beaming Drew across the church. Sunny days to come? Carly was caught in the midst of the hostility between Sunny and Lucas in the meanwhile. Although Carly believes her ex-husband can do virtually nothing wrong, Lucas is rightfully angry that Sunny abducted Marco. Carly's declaration that Sunny would always be a part of her life raises the possibility of a future reconciliation between the two of them. Given that Natalia is no longer involved, Sunny is unmarried. As soon as Carly finds out that Brennan enlisted her daughter in the WSB, their relationship will undoubtedly end. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, so please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.